Did ELLE Korea deliberately sacrifice other stars' spotlight for Jungkook? Or are we witnessing a calculated cultural shift no one wants to admit? Was this really just a fashion editorial? Or was it a statement so loud it shook the entire Korean entertainment industry before anyone had time to process what had just happened? When Jungkook appeared not once, not twice, but 9 times on the cover of the January 2026 issue of ELLE Korea, the reaction was immediate, explosive, and deeply divided. Some called it historic, others called it excessive, and a growing number of voices began asking the question no one at the magazine ever publicly addressed. Did ELLE Korea intentionally sideline other artists to hand everything to Jungkook? At first glance, the spectacle felt celebratory, almost ceremonial. 9 different covers, each portraying Jungkook with a distinct mood, posture, and emotional temperature, released simultaneously as part of his debut as a global ambassador for Chanel Beauty. Industry insiders used words like epic-making and once in a generation. Fans around the world rushed to secure copies, turning bookstores into battlegrounds and online retailers into countdown clocks. But beneath the applause, another narrative quietly surfaced, one that refused to disappear. Why Jungkook alone? Why an entire issue? And what does it mean when one idol occupies so much cultural real estate in a publication that once prided itself on diversity of faces? The controversy did not erupt because Jungkook lacks relevance. On the contrary, it erupted precisely because his relevance has grown so vast that it now forces institutions to make uncomfortable choices. The January 2026 issue of ELLE Korea did not merely feature Jungkook. It revolved around him. The visual storytelling, the fashion film, the interviews, even the New Year messaging aligned toward a single gravitational center. For some readers, this felt like an evolution of media responding to global demand. For others, it felt like a warning sign that the spotlight was becoming dangerously narrow. Social media amplified the tension. On X, formerly known as Twitter, the account at @JJK_Times shared an unboxing video sourced from ELLE Korea's own Instagram story. The presentation was theatrical, a box slowly opening under dramatic lighting, revealing 9 magazines arranged like artifacts. The caption read, "A beautiful new year with Jungkook," a phrase that sounded celebratory to fans but exclusionary to critics. The question spread fast. A beautiful new year for whom? Netizens who questioned the decision were quick to point out that Korea is overflowing with actors, models, musicians, and creatives who rarely receive even a single solo cover from top-tier magazines. Was dedicating an entire issue to one idol fair? Did it erase opportunities for others? And more pointedly, was ELLE Korea making an editorial decision or a financial one? Supporters of Jungkook did not hesitate to respond. They argued that this was not favoritism but economics, not bias but reality. Jungkook, after all, is not just a member of BTS. He is a global brand. His influence transcends fandom boundaries, driving measurable sales, digital engagement, and international attention. From this perspective, ELLE Korea was not sacrificing anyone. It was simply following the market's loudest signal. Yet even that defense raised further questions. If market demand alone dictates editorial direction, where does artistic responsibility end? Fashion magazines have long positioned themselves as tastemakers, not just mirrors of popularity. By handing over an entire issue to Jungkook, was ELLE Korea shaping culture or surrendering to it? Behind the camera, the production itself reflected meticulous intention. The photo shoot was captured by photographer jeon, styled by Kim Young-jin, with hair by Kim Hwa-yeon, makeup by Kim Do-ryum, and art direction by Lee So-young. Each cover presented Jungkook as a different embodiment of masculinity, elegance, vulnerability, and restraint. There is nothing accidental about the execution. Every image felt like a chapter in a larger narrative, one that positioned Jungkook not as an idol borrowing fashion credibility, but as a figure redefining IT. In his interview with ELLE Korea, Jungkook spoke with a calm confidence that contrasted sharply with the chaos surrounding the release. Discussing his connection with Chanel Beauty, he explained his affinity for Blue de Chanel, describing it as a scent that expresses authenticity without forced masculinity. His words resonated with many readers who saw in him a rare balance between global stardom and introspective sincerity. Yet even this sincerity became part of the debate. When one individual's voice is amplified this powerfully, does it unintentionally drown out others? The conversation deepened when ELLE Korea highlighted Jungkook's achievements beyond fashion. As the first Korean solo artist to surpass 10 billion cumulative streams on Spotify, Jungkook represents a statistical anomaly, a convergence of talent, timing, and global connectivity. His reflections on music emphasized longevity over trends, substance over spectacle. He spoke of songs that transcend seasons and genres, that offer strength to listeners regardless of context. These statements reinforce his image as an artist who thinks beyond charts, yet they also reinforce the rationale behind ELLE Korea's decision. Who else, critics were asked, could justify 9 covers in one issue? Still, the discomfort lingered. In an industry built on visibility, absence speaks loudly. Actors who had anticipated their turn, models who had quietly built portfolios, emerging artists seeking mainstream recognition all remained unseen in that January issue. Whether intentional or not, the message was clear. Jungkook was the story. When asked about time and place, Jungkook offered a poetic answer, suggesting that he lives in the time of those who listen to and see his music. It was a beautiful sentiment, but it also underscored the asymmetry of attention. His time, it seems, now overlaps with nearly everyone else's. The timing of the feature added another layer of emotional weight. With BTS expected to reunite fully in the spring, Jungkook's words about hoping for a safe and meaningful season felt almost prophetic. Fans interpreted this as a quiet promise, a bridge between individual growth and collective return. In this light, the ELLE Korea issue became more than fashion. It became a prelude, a signal flare ahead of a new chapter in K-pop history, and yet, the central question remains unresolved. Did ELLE Korea knowingly choose to elevate Jungkook at the expense of others, or did it simply respond to an unavoidable cultural force? The answer may lie somewhere in between. Media institutions do not operate in a vacuum. They negotiate between ideals and realities, between representation and revenue. Jungkook's dominance in this issue exposes the tension at the heart of modern celebrity culture, where global demand can compress diversity into a single face. For fans, the 9 covers are a source of pride, proof that a Korean artist can command an entire global platform without compromise. For critics, they are a symptom of imbalance, a reminder that even celebration can cast shadows. And for ELLE Korea, the issue stands as both a triumph and a provocation, one that will be analyzed long after the magazines leave store shelves. Perhaps the most telling detail is not what was included, but what was never addressed. ELLE Korea did not publicly explain its editorial rationale. There was no statement about representation, no acknowledgement of controversy. The silence allowed speculation to grow, filling the gaps with assumptions and taehyung. Was the decision purely strategic? Was it an experiment? Or was it simply inevitable? As the industry watches the ripple effects, one thing is undeniable. This was not just a magazine cover story. It was a cultural moment that forced audiences to confront uncomfortable questions about power, visibility, and the cost of global stardom. Whether viewed as market logic or media overreach, Jungkook's 9 faces on ELLE Korea have already reshaped expectations. The real question may not be whether ELLE Korea sacrificed other artists for Jungkook, but whether the industry itself is prepared for what happens when one artist becomes too big to share the frame. And as the dust slowly settled, the conversation did not fade. Instead, it matured, evolving from raw outrage and blind celebration into something far more complex and far more revealing about the current state of global pop culture. Because what happened with Jungkook and ELLE Korea was never just about 9 covers. It was about power, visibility, and the silent recalibration of who gets to occupy cultural space in an era ruled by algorithms, fandom economies, and global consumption patterns. In the weeks following the release, industry analysts began dissecting the numbers that ELLE Korea never publicly confirmed, but that everyone in the business already understood. Sales reportedly surged far beyond a standard January issue. Online traffic spiked. International orders poured in from regions that traditionally barely register on Korean fashion magazines' metrics. Southeast Asia, South America, parts of Europe, and even North America showed unusually high engagement. The data told a story that no press release ever needed to spell out. Jungkook did not just sell magazines, he expanded the magazine's geographical relevance. And that, perhaps, is where the discomfort truly begins. Because when one artist can single-handedly globalize a domestic publication, the rules quietly change. Editorial ideals that once prioritized balance, rotation, and representation suddenly face a harsher reality. Can a magazine justify choosing 5 different faces when one face multiplies reach tenfold? At what point does diversity become a financial risk rather than a cultural value? These are not questions ELLE Korea created, but this issue forced them into the open. Critics who accuse the magazine of sacrificing other artists often frame their arguments emotionally, pointing to fairness and opportunity. But defenders responded with a colder, more unsettling logic. Visibility is no longer evenly distributed because attention itself is no longer evenly earned. In a digital-first era, relevance compounds. The more attention one figure receives, the more platforms feel compelled to center them again, creating a loop that is difficult, if not impossible, to break. Jungkook, in this sense, is not the cause but the proof. What made this particular case explode was the symbolism of total dominance. 1 cover is an honor, 2 is a statement, 9 is a declaration. It suggests not collaboration but control. Even if unintentional, the optics implied that Jungkook was not merely participating in the fashion world, but temporarily owning it. For supporters, this was a victory not just for him, but for K-pop as a global force. For skeptics, it felt like the narrowing of an industry that once thrived on multiplicity. The emotional divide became especially visible among Korean netizens, where reactions differed sharply from international ARMY. Some local voices expressed concern that domestic platforms were becoming too dependent on globally bankable names, leaving less room for emerging talent to grow organically. Others countered that Jungkook himself emerged from that same system and had simply transcended it. Was it fair to punish success simply because it was overwhelming? Interestingly, Jungkook himself never addressed the controversy directly. His interview answers remained introspective, grounded, almost detached from the frenzy surrounding him. When he spoke about music, time, and presence, there was no trace of entitlement, no hint of dominance. This contrast between the man and the magnitude of his platform only intensified the discussion. How does someone who appears so self-effacing become the center of such disproportionate attention? Some observers argued that this is precisely why brands and magazines gravitate toward him. Jungkook represents scale without arrogance, influence without provocation. For luxury houses like Chanel Beauty, that combination is invaluable. He does not overpower the product, he absorbs it. He does not shout identity, he suggests it. And in a market fatigued by excess, subtlety amplified by global fame becomes the ultimate currency. Yet even this admiration circles back to the same dilemma. If one individual becomes the perfect vessel for every narrative a brand or publication wants to tell, where does that leave everyone else? Does the industry evolve by expanding platforms, or does it consolidate around a few irreplaceable figures? The January 2026 issue of ELLE Korea will likely be remembered less for its styling or photography, and more for the question it left unanswered. Not whether Jungkook deserved 9 covers, but whether the system that allowed it can sustain itself without alienating the very ecosystem it depends on. As BTS's anticipated full group return approaches, the timing of this moment feels almost symbolic. Jungkook standing alone on 9 covers just months before rejoining 6 others mirrors the tension between individuality and collectivity that defines modern idol culture. It raises a quiet, haunting question. Has the era of the group already given way to the era of the singular global figure? And if so, are magazines like ELLE Korea documenting that shift or accelerating it? For now, the industry watches, recalibrates, and waits. Other publications will inevitably test similar strategies. Some will succeed, Others will face backlash without the safety net of Jungkook's unmatched global appeal. What cannot be undone is the precedent. The line has been crossed, the limit tested, the spotlight stretched to its maximum intensity. Whether this moment will be remembered as visionary or excessive depends on what comes next.